What is going on, YouTube? So I wanted to come back today. It's been a little while, but with the next installment in my NBA draft big board. Um, so I am up to power forwards at this point. So working down to the final two positions, working into the front court. Power forward, depending on how you classify the players, is a little bit thin this year. You could have some players that could play more of a stretch four, or players that might be more commonly playing it center in college, but play at the four in the NBA, depending on how they're able to expand their game. I do want to mention two key names that I had slotted at other positions. One, Onyeka Okongwu, the big man out of USC, is slotted in the center group, and then Patrick Williams, the forward out of Florida State, I put with the small forwards or the wings in this class, but he could play at the three or the four. So I just wanted to mention those two guys that would have made the list otherwise for power forwards. So let's go ahead and start with some honorable mentions. Again, power forward's not the deepest group in this class, but I think there's a sneaky good group of stretch forwards to pay attention to. And there's a few international prospects to watch as well that could play at the four. So start with Paul Reed. He's a power forward out of DePaul. I think he's one of the guys to watch that could actually slip up into the first round. He's a pretty good example of what you would want out of maybe a second or third unit power forward. Had a pretty good season at DePaul, and I think he's got one of the more volatile draft stocks. He's not the youngest player in this class by any means either. He was a junior coming out of DePaul, about 6'9", 225 pounds. For his career, shot about 53% from the field and about 34% from beyond the arc. And the shooting numbers from downtown were pretty shaky throughout his career. I believe his junior season was either the second worst three-point shooting percentage he had of his career. He's a decent defender. He's not going to be a rim protector, I don't think, he could. I don't know. That one could be a little bit up in the air. He actually did improve a good bit in that regard of his game. He averaged about 2.6, 2.8 blocks per game his junior season. But he does have the potential of becoming a two-way forward. He's one of the more unknown prospects in this draft class. Outside of the shooting numbers, he did improve his overall efficiency. Rebounding numbers went up, steals, blocks, and did manage turnovers a little bit better. Assist-to-turnover ratio was the best of his career during his junior season. Next up, I got Jaden McDaniels. I liked Jaden McDaniels a lot coming out of high school. Definitely had a shaky freshman campaign at Washington, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on McDaniels just in terms of how good he can actually be in the NBA. Very agile within the paint, still has to put on some size, about 6'10", maybe 6'9", 200 pounds, and 200 pounds wet, I would say. He's a five-star recruit. Improved as the season moved along. He definitely had a slow start to his freshman season, but that was to be expected. He was part of a pretty dynamic Washington front court. That was a shame that we didn't really get to watch them play in the postseason. Because they were pretty rapidly improving down the stretch. Shooting numbers, again, got to improve a little bit for McDaniels. He shot about 34% from beyond the arc, about 39% from the field throughout the regular season. But those numbers actually dipped heading into conference play. A lot of his other numbers picked up, but that's an area that he definitely needs to improve. Assist percentage, rebounding percentage, both in the double digits, right where you want them to be. The turnover percentage around 20%, not what you want, but 1.5 steal percentage, 5 block percentage, averaged about 13, 14 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and about 1.5 blocks. So solid. Like I said, I think he could be a solid find, maybe early second round, depending on who is willing to take a flyer out on him. And then last one on my honorable mentions is Zeke Naji, power forward out of, I believe, Arizona. He is one of the more old school, I guess you would say, big men in this class. He didn't really show the ability at Arizona to draw out his game, shot about 30% from beyond the arc, but he only played 1 year at Arizona, so he never really had a chance to expand that part of his game. Very good rebounder, good rim protector, averaged about 1 block per game, about 9 rebounds, and about 16 points. He's a good low post scorer. Again, is that kind of that cap ceiling for Najee that might limit his potential at the next level. Probably looking like a very late first, early to mid second round pick. So get into my top 5. Number 5, I have Precious Achiuwa, the freshman forward out of Memphis. Memphis brought in a really, really solid 2020 recruiting class. 2019. Preston Achua, James Wiseman, obviously Wiseman, probably top 3 prospect in this class, but only stuck around for 3 games before his time at Memphis was over. Achua, one of the more intriguing prospects because he got out of the gates very, very slow. He Again, it's a shame that the season was cut short because he was improving pretty rapidly down the stretch. I think in terms of physical tools and just overall basketball IQ, you're looking at a player that's very overrated on defense, very underrated on defense, similar to like a Cam Reddish, where I think the physical tools and just kind of the perimeter defensive ability, and even if you want to move it down low a little bit, he's got that frame about 6'8", 6'9", 225 pounds, so he can contend down low. He averaged about 16 points, 11 rebounds, 1 assist, about 1 steal and 2 blocks per game. So he's definitely a good two-way forward in that regard. Shooting numbers started picking up down the stretch. He shot about 50% from the field for the season, about 49%, about 33% from beyond the arc. I would expect him to fall. I mean, if someone really likes what he brings to the table, because I think there's still a very high ceiling for him and he's still really improving, one of the younger forwards in this draft class, I think you could find him as a late lottery pick at the very earliest. That was more where he was projected coming out of high school, though. You're probably looking at a late teens or just mid-20s first round pick. Number 4, I got Isaiah Stewart, power forward out of Washington. He could slide over to the 5 again. Part of that really talented front court with Washington playing alongside Jaden McDaniels. Now, most people are probably going to have Stewart anywhere from, if you're just looking at an overall big board, from somewhere around 25 to 40. So I have him up a little bit higher than most would. But I think he's a little bit more polished and just brings a more dynamic skill set to the table than a lot of other people might see him. And you're going to see some other, I'm not calling myself a draft expert by any means, but some other draft experts being pretty high on him. Again, similar to McDaniels, was improving in a lot of facets down the stretch. Washington was a pretty good team in general last season. Averaged about 17 points, about 9 boards, 1 assist, and about half a steal and 2 blocks. He's a better rim protector than McDaniels, but he's not as kind of slippery or twitchy, if you want to say, just that agile from within the 2-point arc. He's a very good scorer when you're able to get it to him down low. About a 63 true shooting percentage. BPM was about 7.5. Just his overall efficiency numbers were really impressive. I think you know what you're getting out of Stewart. If he can find a way to stretch out his game a little bit and start shooting better from maybe like 10 feet to 3-point land, at least from the rim, then like I said, I think he'd be worth kind of like an early 20s pick in the first round. And then moving to my top 3, which is where you start getting into maybe more of the lottery conversation. I've got Alexi Pokazewski. Again, one of the more intriguing international prospects in this class because he's going to be one of probably the 3 or 4 highest picked. Good shooter. And again, you're still looking at a guy that's a little bit unknown across the board. But again, a good shooter, a decent scorer. He's going to have to put on a little bit of size. I think right now he stands about 6'11", 7 foot, and I believe he's still under 200 pounds, which is going to be a problem. But he is one of the younger prospects, one of the more raw. I don't even think he'll be 19 years old yet, at least the expected start date for the 2020-21 season, which is set for December 22nd. He'll be 19 around the start of the season, but I think he's still got another month or 2 to go on that. But again, incredible physical tools. He's a decent shot creator or facilitator. I think he's got a really high ceiling in terms of just being an offensive playmaker. He can create his own shot, especially from 3, which is really impressive. It's just, is he going to stray more toward that like Thon Maker? I won't put Larry Markin in the category bust yet, but is he going to stray more toward the Thon Maker, the Dragan Pender mold, or is he going to be more of the Kristaps Porzingis line where, he kind of molded his game, put on some size, really started becoming more of a contending defender down low. He's got to be able to do that. And while he is a good rebounder, he's got pretty good basketball IQ, doesn't really fall asleep off ball. Again, he's going to have to work on the fundamentals and put on some size. I think you're looking, I don't exactly know. I have him as a late lottery to the early 20s. it'll be a pretty volatile draft stock for Pokazewski. Number 2, I have Jalen Smith, power forward out of Maryland that I really like just as a prospect because I think his game fits very well in the modern NBA. He's a solid defender, underrated facilitator from the paint, very good stretch shooter, and he was improving in a number of facets of his game during his sophomore season at Maryland. About 6'10", like 225, 230 pounds, so could put on a little bit of size still, but averaged around 16 points per game, around 11 rebounds, 1 assist, around 1 steal, and 2.5 blocks. So just stat line looks really, really good. Shot about 54% from the field, 37% from beyond the arc, and then 75% from the free throw line. So very good shooting numbers for playing at the 4. He's going to fit a very specific mold because you're still going to have to be a little bit patient with him. But if he finds himself in the right situation, could still make a little bit of an immediate impact if he starts finding traction during his rookie season. Again, he's already a good shooter, already a good, smart defender. He's got decent size. Again, still probably put on a little bit more muscle there. Still kind of work on seeing seeing all of the court when he's on offense, when he's in transition. Pick and roll game could use a little bit of work. Schematically, I don't know how versatile he's going to be in that regard, but again, I think a solid player that could fall late lottery, maybe late teens, depending on how teams see him. And then number 1, I've got a guy that's probably going to fall at minimum a top 10 pick, maybe in the top 5. The Naismith Wooden Award winner, Dayton power forward Obi Toppin. One of the better stories of last college basketball season, I think, just as a whole, Dayton was probably the most disappointing situation to not see play in the postseason because they could have been a 1 seed. Again, Toppin was having a tremendous season. Averaged about 20 points per game, about 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and I believe about 1 steal and 1 block. The shooting numbers were incredible, around 63% from the field, 40% from beyond the arc. The limited mobility and just overall athleticism is most of what holds Toppin back in the minds of a lot of people just around the NBA draft conversation. He does have a really good frame, good size. I think he's a fairly polished prospect, about 6'9", 225 pounds. He's definitely going to be someone that's going to live closer to the rim, but can shoot, can extend his game beyond the arc. Again, not going to be much of a facilitator, I don't think. He's a decent passer, but he's not going to create a whole lot of his own shots. So he's not going to be a lot of that do-it-all stretch forward, like a Karl Anthony Towns or something like that. Again, which is kind of what puts the cap on his draft stock. Still, though, could find himself in a number of different good situations, just given the mold of his game, and that he seems like a pretty well-rounded talent as far as his ceiling goes. A lot of teams know what they would get out of him in the lottery. So that pretty much does it for my power forwards. I will try to come back as soon as I can with my centers, and then before November 18th, the planned start date for the NBA draft, I will try to get at least one more mock draft up, any adjustments that are coming along the way. So that's pretty much it. See ya.